We're here at Bridgestone Golf. With me is Adam Rehberg. Spent some time this morning doing a ball fitting outside. Had an opportunity to hit some drivers, some 8-irons, which apparently weren't all that 8-iron-y in distance, but that was great. We'll get into that. Adam, thank you so much for having us today. And maybe you can get us started telling us what your original goal was when we look into the fitting process, and obviously you had a perspective on what I've been playing, a little bit ancient. I saw a couple smirks from the Bridgestone guys here. Just give us an idea of what starts a fitting for you.
Well, thanks for coming out, and we were happy to have you. It was a little rainy out there today, so we were testing also the wetness on the ball. So we may send your results to Bryson so he can analyze the wet factor. But yeah, you came in, you were still playing the B330, a little bit of a generation before of the Tour B line. So we had to kind of dig through the dust and find a couple dozen of the B330 laying around to start from there. So we started from your ball, and the biggest thing is we want to look at how the ball's performing off driver, 8-iron, and around the greens. And so we had you start with driver, had you hit a few shots with that B330. We saw some good ball speed. Spin was a little bit high, and then we moved you into our Tour B X golf ball, which is kind of equivalent to the B330. A couple changes from that model as far as ball speed and spin around the greens. We saw spin go down just a little bit from B330 to that, a little bit of a gain, but still not optimized. We wanted to make sure that the ball is optimized for you, and you're a pretty aggressive swinger. You're above 105, and of course our story is, you know, an above 105 couple models and a below 105, and we know that the above 105 is a little bit firmer and the below 105 models are a little bit softer in compression. So for you, we saw spin numbers that were a little high in the above 105 with the firmer compression. So you're kind of an outlier. You know, obviously we like people to play the ball in the 105 above and below, but it's also about optimizing. So spin was a little bit high with driver with X, so we did hit RX as well, and we did see spin come down. Naturally, it happens with the softer compression golf ball, and so the RX showed a little bit increase in driver spin, or decrease in driver spin, a little bit straighter flight, and a little bit more distance. But then we moved to 8-iron to make sure everything is optimized. We obviously hit B330 as well, X and RX. X performed pretty well with your 8-iron, with the spins kind of good, kind of optimized. RX was a little bit longer, again what we typically see with a high aggressive swinger. Spin was a little bit low with the RX with the 8-iron, so there's that balance of if your launch angle's good and RX is doing what you want into the green, you're good there, but X was pretty optimized. And then lastly, the around the green, something you're going to have to test. It was a little rainy, so we'll kind of give you those to test around the greens. X is going to give you a little bit more spin around the greens, a little softer cover. RX is going to have a little bit less, a little bit more for the bump and run.
Okay. We didn't touch on XS, we didn't touch on RXS, and I know that's on the fly because we had a large number of balls out there of all four options, but we clearly leaned towards two straight away. Talk to me about what made you stay away from XS and RXS. I know. Let's at least explain this during the fitting process. What drove you away from those two balls?
Well, not to beat around the bush. There's balls that works for you, and then there's balls that definitely do not work for you. And the XS and the RXS definitely will not work for you. They're Bridgestone balls. We don't ever claim that, hey, you know, all of them kind of work for you. We definitely say that there's balls in our lines that would be completely detrimental to your game. And for you, it was the XS and the RXS because those have softer, spinny covers than the X and the RX. So you already have high spin off your driver. You have high spin with your 8-iron. You probably spin the ball pretty much around the greens relevant to everything else we saw. So these balls won't really help you. They actually hurt you. We didn't have time to hit them. We were going to, and it was raining, but based on what we saw there with your numbers, you would hit XS and RXS a lot shorter with driver, probably a lot shorter with 8-iron because they would overspin the golf ball. And so you're definitely in a firmer urethane product. The X still has a really soft urethane, and the RX still has a soft urethane. But as far as our really soft covers, they won't work for you.
Yeah, it's perfect. I like that you have options for golfers who need spin and options for golfers who don't need spin, but in two different spectrums overall. Maybe let's touch on, because we have an average score swing speed over 105, but clearly in this case, there's a little bit of gray area, and maybe talk to me about the fitting process in itself and how important that is for golfers who, in many cases, would just go to the store and say, well, I don't hit the ball 105, so I'm immediately going to lean towards RX, versus going to a fitting experience and maybe the X is the ball for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the fitting ultimately is the best way to get fit. Going to an event, testing them yourself. The reason our 105 number is that dividing line is because our guys here at R&D, where we sit here right now, have really analyzed where that depreciation of compression versus the ball performance, kind of that line falls. So we found that the RX and RXS work better for the swings under 105 because that's typically a player that can't really kind of compress the ball all the way down. They can compress this a little bit better. When you compress the ball, you take away the spin. And that's what we saw with you too. Mm-hmm. So when you're able to compress the ball, you take away the spin, you take away that left and right, you hit the ball straighter, and then it's our responsibility of R&D and golf ball makers to make sure the ball does everything else it needs to do. Spins with 8-iron, spins around the green. So that's why the RX and RXS works well for most of the majority of consumers out there. We found that close to 90% of people do swing under 105, so these specs work so well. You've also saw in the marketplace that everyone is tending to go a little bit more to softer compression golf balls. Other companies have done that over the last 7 or 8 years. So it helps the consumer. It helps them hit the ball straighter. It helps them feel the ball a little bit more with their irons. And then as you go up to the Tour B product, the X and the XS, you definitely understand that this ball works a little bit better for the higher swing speeds. That does control spin a little bit better than what you do. That's why the RX probably works a little bit better for you. You need to take away some spin. So they all have their strengths and weaknesses. The X and the XS just work better, as we've seen on robot, player testing. Everything matters to us, not just robot, not just player testing, but a combination of both of those things to decide which specs work better for a more aggressive high swing speed and a slower under 105 swing speed.
Okay. So something we haven't really talked about yet, and we didn't see much of it on the 8-iron. I was fortunately dialed in enough to get a good perception of the product we wanted to see. But on the driver, I was seeing a little bit of variance left and right. And thankfully my producer reminded me here to take a look at when we talk about mishitting the golf ball. And this isn't just path, it's face, it's all those things. You lean into this Tour B X and you lean into this Tour B RX. What is the big difference between the two when we're talking about mishits?
Right. So as you look at these balls, we've kind of said this over the years. It isn't a part of our marketing story, but when we go through fittings and we talk to people one-on-one, this is kind of the way we look at it. If you look at the X and the XS, you really need to be hitting it square. Usually what we see is faster club head speeds skew towards better players. It's just naturally going to happen. Handicaps go down as swing speed goes up. Players are able to hit the ball more aggressively. They're able to get the contact smooth, hits the ball a lot smoother. So in the X and XS, we found that most players aren't seeking the forgiveness factor. They're seeking the ball to spin a lot, and they're seeking it to go a little bit further and be a little bit straighter here with the X. The RX and RXS is under 105, and as I said, with above swing speeds tends to be lower handicaps. When swing speed goes down, handicap goes up. And so these players are looking for a little bit more forgiveness on the golf ball too. And we've done tests in R&D, and we found that the standard deviation of the RX and RXS does tend to be a little bit tighter on mishits, and that's because of the compression. If you mishit the ball, it's still going to compress, even though it's not as firm as these. It's going to compress on the club, and you're going to be able to kind of maintain the spin and maintain the distance, much like a blade would be here and a more forgiving iron would be here. It's kind of the way the golf ball construction is built. This ball is naturally going to help you hit the ball a little bit straighter. And even as you see these two here, if you drop down to our E12 product, that helps the ball be a little bit even more straighter. It's more forgiving than our tour line. People who are going to play a tour ball can control trajectory and spin it around the greens, and other players that maybe get above a 10 handicap and above that want a 12, the E12 product will see even more forgiveness inside of that golf ball because of the construction of the golf ball.
So when we talked about fitting on the Tour B product, can someone take their Tour B fitting and apply it to some of the rest of the balls in your lineup? Is there any sort of interlapping there that that would make sense that you could kind of share with people? You talked about E12.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you go through the fitting, if you're a tour player, golf ball, you want to spin around the greens, we're obviously going to fit you into the tour line. If you come to us and say, I don't really spin it a lot around the greens, I need a little bit more accuracy, you're going to drop down and be an E12. But if you fit on either side of the spectrum of swing speed, if you're under 105 and over 105, we have our E12 that is an E12 speed and an E12 soft that is very similar to what you see here, but is a little bit more pointed towards distance and accuracy off the tee. So if somebody like the RX or like the X or like the XS and RXS on either side, if they are all of a sudden seeing, man, I would like a ball a little bit, I'm playing a course that's a little bit tighter, or I'm playing and I want to hit the ball a little bit further, they could drop down to the E12 and play the soft version or the E12 speed, based on them being over 105 and under 105. So you can move back and forth between those. And we found that to be the case of an E12 fit. So if I fit somebody in the E12 soft, and they start seeing some gains and playing a little bit better, get their confidence up, typically what they'll do is they'll move up to the RX or RXS because they're like, I'm playing really well, the ball fits me, kind of where do I need to go from here? And you see that with players in irons and drivers and all kinds of things moving from, a 5.5 shaft to a 6, because they're hitting a little bit better, they need to tighten the dispersion, my swing's getting a little bit faster, I need to move into a different product. So you can move across up from the E12 into the Tour B or vice versa to get a little bit more distance and accuracy.
Great. Well, I think my biggest takeaway from this right now is that there might not just be one perfect ball for someone. Conditions may change, the expectations, different types of courses. I now have 2 balls that I can pick from pretty comfortably from your new lineup and feel like I have different levels of success in different parts of my game, and I think that's great. Walking away from this fitting, if you had to pick one ball for me to play, well, based on my last setup for the next 10 years, what would it be and why?
Well, back to your point of talking about the perfect ball, we do believe that you should get fit as often as you can because your swing will change, conditions will change. We do recommend that you stick with one ball and play it because that'll be what you'll use throughout the round and you'll get very consistent with the golf ball. But as far as for you, just like everyone else, everyone's unique. Every player does things differently. So you need to make sure the golf ball fits your game. And as you stated, you're kind of in between this X and RXS. So you're kind of a different case of you're kind of on the borderline because of your driver spin, because of your 8-iron distance. I would definitely say the Tour B RX would fit you best because off the driver, it is a lot straighter and it has the spin you need for your driver. But then when you move to 8-iron, it's not about optimizing distance with your 8-iron. It's about optimizing the condition. And we saw that conditions were very good. Your standard deviation of shots were tight with the RX, and your distance was right where you expected it to be. Lastly, you would need to make sure this gives you what you need around the greens. This one's going to have a little less spin than X. And since you were over 105, but kind of right in that gray area, the RX would be the ball that I recommend for you based on it being soft and giving you the consistent numbers you need off your driver.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time today, Alex. Adam. We're talking to Alex. We have a lot of opportunity here to get a better understanding of Bridgestone golf balls. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you take an opportunity based on what I've experienced to go and get fit yourself. You might be surprised at what you find.